Welcome to Generating Gratitude, a look at personal growth in a grateful life. What follows is not professional advice or medical recommendation, but stories and perspectives about living with gratitude. Now, here is your host, Joe Volk.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another blazing edition of Generating Gratitude. I'm Joe, your host. Start out the show like we start out every show. You can't be hateful and grateful at the same time, and I believe that. Road test it, and if you find anything different, let me know. My first guest today on Generating Gratitude is Zack Peterson. Zack has formed an interesting club, the Midland Dads Club. But the interesting thing that caught my eye was Zack turned something tragic into something very, very good. And we're welcoming Zack to the program. Zack, welcome to Generating Gratitude.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you very much for having me, and happy to be here.
Now, explain the tragic event that caused you to form the Midland Dads Club.
Yeah, so I think it's been years in the making, but when I was 17, I lost my dad to suicide. And I was 17, so I was still young, a kid essentially, and went through a pretty dark period. And then full circle, once I started having kids, it really kind of opened my eyes up to do some different things.
Now, your father ended his life when you were 17. I can't imagine what that would be like, especially as a teenager. What was it like?
I don't really know of a good way to explain it. When I think back on it, it feels like it was just kind of a black hole. And I don't really use it figuratively. I mean, I literally went through a dark period for months. It was the summer before my senior year of high school. So then it was in August. So then, started my senior year of high school. And it was just, I was very isolated from my family, from school, from everything. I just shut everything out. Kind of went to a pretty dark place. I don't know. It just kind of shook my world. Me and my dad were really close, and so I didn't really know how to cope with that when it happened.
Did it make you mad at the world?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'd say it made me mad at the world. I'd say I carried the most guilt, and I was mad at myself more than anything. My dad lived in South Carolina, and we lived here in Michigan, but we went down and visited him often, and I was the last person with him before it happened. And he actually mentioned that he had thoughts of killing himself when I was with him, and tried to get him to move back to Michigan, or tried to do whatever I could. But, I was 17, and I guess I didn't really understand the gravity of the situation at the time. And I left, and then it happened. And I just, still to this day, and I know it's not the right thing, but I do carry a sense of guilt. So I'd say I was more mad at myself than the world.
When did you really stop blaming yourself? Because when the people that are left after someone takes their lives, it's just natural that people around that person blame themselves. Like you'd mentioned, having to deal with that guilt.
I think it took a couple of years. So I went through high school and was failing all my classes, and then got to a certain point. I think my principal had told me, hey, you're not going to graduate, the rate you're going. So I kind of did some self-reflecting and was like, my dad would be, pretty pissed off if he, saw how bad I was doing right now. And so I've always been somebody who takes a negative and turns it into a positive. And so I after school classes and did everything that I could to get my GPA up, and I walked in graduation. And then I went through a little period after school where I didn't know what I was doing with my life, the direction I wanted to go. So I joined the Air Force. My dad was in the Air Force, and his dad was in the Air Force. And so I think joining the Air Force really is the period where I kind of got my life going in a positive trajectory. I think it really had it not been for the Air Force, I'm sure my life would have ended up a lot different than it looks like now.
Yeah, I just can't imagine, being a 17-year-old senior year and having something like that happen. However, you did you took your grief and you took your emotions and you turned it into something good. The Midland Dads Club. Explain a little bit about the Midland Dads Club.
Yeah, so Midland Dad Club is something I've been working on for a while. I've been very, very happy with the involvement of the other dads in the group. And what the Midland Dad Club is simply is just a place for dads to connect with other dads locally. Being a parent, once I started having kids, my wife and I aren't from the Midland area. So we moved here for just about 4 years ago, and I have 3 kids, 5 and under. And so I was parenting. We're kind of parenting on an island. We didn't have a big support system. That was some difficult things that I was dealing with my oldest son, and, not having that father figure in my life. I created the group to try and create a network, a community for other dads, just to have dads know that they don't have to parent on their own. We're in this together, because a lot of people in today's day and age are doing it on their own. They're isolated, and I feel like that's where a lot of depression, different hardships come from, is isolation. So creating that community, I guess a brotherhood. It kind of goes back to the military. Like when you're in the military, you're all in this together. You're all doing the same thing, and it creates that sense of brotherhood. And when you leave the military, you have a isolating feeling because you no longer have that connection. And so creating the Midland Dad Club, we're all dads. We're all in this fight together. We might be in different stages of fatherhood, but we're all in this fight. And I think it really creates that sense of brotherhood.
You bring up an important point, Zach, and me being a recovering alcoholic, I certainly know the value of community. Because you had mentioned isolation, and isolation is like the worst thing. In whatever case, isolation is the worst thing that can happen, because, how do they torture prisoners? They put them in isolation. That isolation, when we separate ourselves from society and we separate ourselves from supportive people that really, our minds are not our friends. Explain, Zach, the power of community. For alcoholics, we say, I get drunk, we stay sober. Just having that person that understands what you're going through. Explain how it's worked in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I guess the principle of it is, building friendships and building community before an event happens. So then, if a dad in the group is going through a hard time, he's already got, 3, 4, 5 people that he could reach out to for help. Men typically, are always taught, tough, just tough it out, things like that, man up. That's always kind of been the thing. And, that's just not helpful, so having people that they can reach out to, I think is helpful for when they actually need it. They have somebody in their corner that they can reach out to. I think that's really, really what it boils down to.
Is it difficult to get men to reach out?
I don't, that's a tough question. I don't no. And I think the reason for that is because the Midland Dad Club isn't a grief center. It's not a counseling center. It's not anything formal. It's just dads that are all in this together. And it kind of is that gap between, a lot of guys, there's, negative connotations with going to see a therapist or things like that, or guys don't want to go talk. But if you want to grab a cup of coffee with another guy, another dad. Everybody's been super open and willing to talk and willing to be there for each other and talk to each other, which has been just really awesome. So I don't think it hasn't been as difficult as one might think. I think in creating a safe place, I think has really opened up that conversation.
And Zack, we're going to leave it right there for just a second. We have to take a short break. Zack is with us, the founder of the Midland Dad Club, and it's got some great questions coming up for him after these commercial breaks here. You're listening to Generating Gratitude on WSGW. You're listening to Generating Gratitude here on WSGW. Zack is with us, founder of the Midland Dad Club. Zack, I want to talk about a point that you mentioned about dads leaning on other dads. Sometimes, that cell phone that we have, that we use, 23 out of 24 hours a day, sometimes it seems like it weighs 700 pounds. When you really need to call somebody, when you really need to talk to somebody, one of the most difficult things to do is pick up the phone and call. What would you say to a prospective dad that is having trouble picking up that 700-pound cell phone?
That's a good analogy, because that's exactly how it feels. The biggest thing is, when somebody's feeling that way, they feel like they're the only one in the world that feels that way, when in reality, we all feel that way from time to time. Majority, more often than not, everybody's gone through a period, and knowing that there's somebody on the other end of the line, that you could pick up and call, and they'd be willing to just sit there and listen to you for however long you need is huge. So it just boils down to it. It's all right to not be all right, and it's okay to ask for help.
And it's okay to ask questions, because I know I'm father of twins, and I literally had no idea what I was doing, especially for twins, and to have somebody to lean on, just to talk to is, simple questions like, is this normal? Does this happen to everybody?
Yeah, absolutely. Just creating that place where people can ask questions, parents, twins, it's a wild ride parenting. And when you're a first time parent, it's super overwhelming, and there's a lot of unknowns. So having people that you can reach out to and ask for help is really helpful.
Well, especially being a first time parent, and you haven't slept in like 3-4 weeks because you're up all night. You and the spouse are looking at each other wondering, why did we even do this? Just having a voice there to say, hey, we all went through this. This is natural. Yep. This is normal.
100%. And I feel like there's always been a lot of different type of support groups for moms, which there should be, because the moms, hats off to them. They go through a lot physically, mentally, and the moms need all the support they can get. But the fathers typically fall by the wayside, and there usually isn't a lot for men, for mental health, for just dads being there for each other. And if you look at the statistics, the suicide rate for men is extremely high compared to the suicide rate for women.
Right. When a baby's born, everybody pays attention to the baby, and then everybody pays attention to mom, but dad seems to be forgotten in this equation. Or at least that's been in my experience, where, oh, the baby's great, how are you doing, dear? But nobody ever asks dad, so how are you handling this?
Yeah, and dads have a lot on their plate. I try to talk about this gracefully, because I don't want to discredit anything that the moms do, because the moms have a really tough job,
Right.
you know, especially the early years when they're either, you know, breastfeeding or pumping. You know, the moms have a very tough job too. But then when it comes to men, a lot of times, and women not again, but the dads a lot of times have the financial responsibility, being away from the family. There's a lot of weight on a dad's shoulders to just kind of keep it all together, which a lot of times goes unseen, and they just kind of fight that daily battle.
Because being a dad, all of a sudden the baby comes, or the babies come in my case, and then reality hits you. Oh my God, you're responsible for this. It seems,
yeah, there's no days off.
Right. It's like, okay, you've got to provide now. You're responsible for this life.
Yep.
It's like somebody just throws a big weight on you all of a sudden. And dealing with that weight, I would imagine that part of the Midland Dad Club, you just guys being able to share some of that weight and just talk about, hey, it's okay. It's okay. You're going to be fine.
Yeah. Absolutely.
How many members do you have, Zach?
We are somewhere right around 380. I think just a little over 380.
Wow, that's incredible. Now, do you have meetings? Do you just have phone lists? Or how do you keep in touch with each other?
Yeah, so it is pretty much all on Facebook right now. So if you want to join the Midland Dad Club, you go join on Facebook, you know, search Midland Dad Club. But we have an email list. So the way that it's set up right now, because I get it, dads are busy, you know, so
yeah.
We try and we're doing one monthly meetup, and I like to alternate them. So some meetups will be just dads and kids. So we'll go to, like, if it's cold out or rainy, we'll go to an indoor playground. If it's, you know, summertime, you can go to a playground outside, just do something fun for the kids. And then I'll alternate and just do a dad-only event. We did, like, beers and braids, where we got, you know, 2 stylists, and they came out and taught, you know, a group of dads different braid styles to do their daughter's hair. You know, we partnered with, you know, a local counseling office here in Midland, and we just got together, you know, had a dad's meeting. So we alternate between events with kids and dads, and then just dads only, because sometimes you're able to have deeper conversations when you're not, you know, trying to watch the little ones. And then I like to do one-on-one coffee meetups. That's kind of my favorite, just because you're able to have more meaningful conversations one-on-one. And then I have an email list, so I will send out, you know, all the event reminders and things like that to the email list.
What advice would you give the first-time father? You're obviously a father of 3. You talk to other dads. What quick advice would you give a first-time dad?
That's a loaded question. Where do you start? You know, I think it just kind of, what I would say is there's a lot of unknowns, and there's no manual. It's ever changing, and it's okay to not have all the answers. And I just feel like there's so much pressure. I don't know if it's from social media, from other sources, but to try and do everything perfect. Nobody's perfect. We're all going to make mistakes, and just show up every single day and do the best you can. I think that would be what I would say.
And enjoy the process, because believe it or not, someday what you're going through now will be the good old days. And believe it or not, you'll miss that. I know my kids are 30, and I miss that.
Okay.
I miss that. You know,
I can see that, and it's sometimes it's hard you got your head down, you're doing the day in day out, and it's sometimes you got to lift your head up and look around, and like you said, just enjoy the process. It's crazy, it's chaotic, but it's fun, and I'm sure I'll miss these years.
Exactly. Zach, we got about 2 minutes left. If you could, how would people get a hold of you or if they wanted to join the Midland Dad Club?
Yeah, so the easiest way is just go on Facebook and search up Midland Dad Club, join, and I always put my phone number out there. It's 517-295-8881. I always encourage everybody to pick up the phone, call me, text me. If you're having a tough time, just give me a call, and I'm always willing to listen and help as much as I can.
Yeah, Zach, my hat's off to you. What you're doing is amazing and much needed, and especially I admire the way you took something really bad and really tragic, and you've turned it into something good. The Midland Dad Club, and that's on Facebook, right, Zach?
Yes, sir. That's on Facebook.
All right. Thank you very much, Zach, for being on Generating Gratitude. See, you know what? You can't be hateful and you can't be grateful at the same time. Now, Zach could have been hateful, but he's turned that tragedy into gratitude. He's turned that tragedy into a way to help others. And I think that's pretty amazing. And our hats off to Zack. The Midland Dad Club. Look for it on Facebook. You're listening to Generating Gratitude here on WSGW. We'll be right back with Aimee, who's staying sober despite terrible circumstances. It's coming up on Generating Gratitude here on WSGW.
Now it's time for more great moments in gratitude with your host, Joe Volk.
Welcome back to Generating Gratitude here on WSGW. Still Joe, still your host. And my next guest is a friend of mine who just recently celebrated 6 years of sobriety, which is very, very cool. But it's also very, very cool for another reason that we'll get into in just a bit. It's my friend Aimee. Aimee, welcome to Generating Gratitude.
Thanks. I'm great to be here.
Now, Aimee, you've been sober, going on 6 years now?
Yes, since Saturday. Yep.
Congratulations. And one of the things I admire about you and your sobriety is a while back you suffered not one but two tragic losses. Tell us a little bit what happened.
I can. Last year in February, on February 17th, I lost my father suddenly to a heart attack, which was totally unexpected. He was 72. And it was really hard, obviously. And then in October, my sister's been battling cancer, and she's my only sibling, and I'm the older sister. And in October, she passed away from breast cancer, and I was there when she passed. And then September, I did lose my grandma, but it wasn't similar. It wasn't like losing my dad and my sister. And losing my sister really took a toll on me because we were like incredibly close. We were not just sisters; we were best friends. So that one was really, really hard. And then, I still struggle with the grief from both, but I'm doing a lot better than I did.
And grief is a tough thing because grief can kind of strike you when you least expect it.
Yes.
You can just be driving, and then all of a sudden, you feel sad.
Yeah, and it hits you like you said, it hits you like even when unexpected, like months from now. Like there will be times where I think of her, and I get sad and I cry a little bit and stuff. I see a picture of her, or I hear a song that triggers. Because she was a huge Taylor Swift fan, so I still get triggered by Taylor Swift songs.
Yeah, and how long ago did she pass?
Last October, 2 weeks before her 43rd birthday.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, the grateful thing about the whole thing is you were there with her to
yes,
support.
I was there when she passed.
Now your father passed away suddenly, and your sister after an illness. Both of them probably presented different challenges.
Yes.
How did you cope with those? Yeah.
Yeah, well, my dad, I was able to cope with. It was easier, even though I was the next of kin, so I had to like sign his death certificate and everything. Which that was a hard part, and they had the keys because he had car keys on him when he died, and I had to get like his car keys and some of his items from the funeral home, and that was really hard. But I was able to get over that a little bit easier than my sister. With my sister, I had to plan everything. I had her cremated. I had to do everything. So it was a very different scenario. But it was what my sister would have wanted. You know, she wouldn't want my mom to do it. She would have wanted me to do it because she knew I was a lot tougher than my mom. But I'm going to admit, there were moments, you know, where I was just like thinking about drinking, but it would run in my mind like, you know, my dad and my sister would not want me seeing that. So,
right. How did you stay sober? Because those are, you know, you had not one but two, and even with your grandma, three events. You know, did you ever struggle with sobriety?
I think not really as much, and I think the reason why is because I have a really good support system. I have you guys in AA. I had my sponsor. My husband's very supportive of me. My family is even supportive of me. My aunt is like, my uncle are like my rocks. You know, my uncle is a recovered alcoholic too, who's been sober over 20 years. So it's like I have those people in my life that have helped me through it. And then I also did grief support, but grief support is very similar to the 12-step program of AA. So I'm thinking I think that 12-step program really helped a lot. And a lot of people don't realize how much it helps, you know?
Yeah, because tragic events are really tests of our sobriety. I mean, recently, you know, not as tragic as your events, but I had an injury and I was in so much pain where if somebody would have offered me a drink, I might have thought about it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I have my moments. I thought about it. There was actually one time I was driving to work and I passed the gas station I used to buy alcohol from and my mouth watered, you know, thinking about it. I'm like, what the heck? And I have not had that in like 3-4 years.
Yeah.
So it still pops up. I mean, it's still there, and that's why I need the program, you know, because it's like I can't.
Because alcohol doesn't care if you're going through bad stuff. Alcohol will tempt you when you're at your weakest.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, I agree with you there on that.
Explain, Aimee. You mentioned your support system. I've often said that there's nothing more powerful than the power of community. Because when things go bad like that, we want to isolate. But that's just that's totally the wrong thing to do.
Yes. I surprisingly didn't isolate because I knew, and knowing, you know, having the program behind me and in my head, the people and the people in the program, that I didn't isolate myself, and I kind of knew that if I did that, I would probably, you know, relapse. So that's why I stay focused. You know, I kept in touch with my stepmom, and you know, and I talked to my husband because I'm really poor at communicating, like especially with my partner, my husband. But these deaths have actually helped me open up to him more about my feelings, and I think that communicating with him and then communicating with my sponsor and communicating with other people that I'm really close to in the program have helped me tremendously. Even family has helped me because it was rough on all of us, not just me, you know.
Right.
yeah, my daughter lost her grandpa and her aunt, and she was really close to her aunt. So it was very challenging, but we got through it.
Now, at any time, were you just mad at God?
Yes, I have my moments.
Where, really, God, you told me to get sober, I get sober. Now you do this to me?
Yeah, it's like, you seriously?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I feel that my higher power wanted my dad and my sister to not suffer, because we found out that my dad did have heart problems that were, from the heart attack. So, and then my sister, she's been battling cancer off and on for like over a decade. So, she's no longer suffering. So it was with her, it was just, she was so young, and we thought we would have more time than we did with her. So
it's always a tragedy when young people.
Yeah, it is. I think that's why it was harder with her, because she was engaged, she was planning on getting married and everything. So.
Right, because with older people, you do kind of it does cross you in the back of your mind, where 70, 80, okay, but but in your case, with your sister in her 40s.
Yes.
Wow. You're listening, Aimee, we're going to take a short break. You're listening to Generating Gratitude here on WSGW. When we come back, we'll talk to Aimee about not only dealing with grief and loss, but things that she's grateful for. Because we all have something, no matter how dire the situation, we can find gratitude in. You're listening to Generating Gratitude here on WSGW. Welcome back to Generating Gratitude here on WSGW. Joe, your host. Aimee is my guest. 6 years of sobriety. She's celebrating, which is a great thing, Aimee. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What made you get sober?
I got in a little trouble. It was the courts, actually, but I wasn't court ordered to go. I wanted to go because I knew I had a problem after I got in trouble. So after that, I decided I went by myself. So the day after my arrest, I went to AA, and I've been sober ever since. I even wrote a thank you letter to the police officers that arrested me.
Well, that's quite something.
Because I know, well, I had a resentment towards them because, who doesn't?
Right.
When you're in that phase, but then I realized that my resentment was wrong, and I felt bad, so I wanted to kind of send an apology letter of my behavior that night, and that I appreciate them, and that, I wish them safe,
Yep.
safe and healthy lives. So, and then I actually got to meet one too and thank him in person too as well. So,
which is a great thing, because a lot of times these officers take a lot of, they're just doing their job.
Yeah.
And as practicing alcoholics, we tend to blame.
Yeah, we do. Oh yeah, we do. We always find something to blame.
It's the officer's fault.
Yeah, not mine.
Not mine. Not that I was intoxicated. The officer didn't hold the drink to my lips and say, "Okay, drink this." Now I'm gonna arrest you.
Yeah.
Aimee, how has your perspective changed in life? Sobriety tends to change us. Where, I often say, you can't be hateful and you can't be grateful at the same time. How has gratitude changed your life?
It changed me dramatically. I mean, I don't have a lot of hate in my life anymore. I mean, I have like temporary resentments, which is normal. It's like a normal character defect that I'm continually going to practice throughout my life, because we're a work in progress, right? We're just constantly working on ourselves. I'm very grateful that I have the sobriety, because it helped me deal with these these tragedies in my life without going to drink, without finding or making an excuse to drink, realizing that, I'm thankful that I was fully there. You know where I'm coming from when I say that?
Yep.
That I wasn't like inebriated or not there when going through everything. And I actually have a stronger link to my higher power than I did in the past. It sounds weird saying that, but my sister, she passed in October, but in July she had a near-death experience too, where she had a massive seizure and they had an intubator. And so we had to fly out there in July, and when she was able to get out of that and they pulled everything out, she was asking where Jose was. And I was like, Jose who?
Yeah.
And and she's like the guy in the white suit that was sitting next to me. And I'm like, who? But that was like one of the things that, she could have been imagining that because she does know Jose's, and she has friends named Jose. But I'm thinking that that was kind of like, my higher power, our God saying, I'm here, I'm watching over her, So, and I feel like that my dad's passing was to benefit my sister to help her cross over, if you understand what I mean too. And I look at it as that way, so she's not doing it alone.
One of the things that in my life, I had a very close friend of mine who died after a long battle of cancer, like your sister, and it took me a while to find gratitude in that. And as weird as it sounds, finding gratitude in somebody's passing, but I tend to look at it this way. I was able, like you had mentioned, to be there for them.
Yes.
And just that unselfishness. Whereas when we're alcoholics, being unselfish isn't our first nature, because alcoholics, let's admit it, we're just selfish. We think that the world, when we're practicing, being an alcoholic, we think that the world revolves around us, and we try to control other people, places, and things, and it's all me, me, me. And when we get sober, it's all about other people. That humility.
Yes, definitely.
What gratitude did you find?
I've lacked a lot of selfishness, and I'm now more focused on helping other people. Like I've sponsored other women, and I've found ways to try to help others. And it's just by even supporting another person in the program, or it could be not even anyone in the program, So it's just being there and not thinking about the whole me concept, like what about my feelings? What about my,
Right.
Or I'm actually thinking about the other person, like, there's, yeah. So
Yeah, it just changes the way that you look at stuff.
yes, I agree with you on that. So it's very different. Like it took me, and it's not like it happened overnight. It took like a year or two for me to get that because the program is a constant work in progress, and it doesn't happen overnight, and you have to really want it and to work it. You can't just, expect it to work for you.
Right, because gratitude is gradual. You don't, while you're going through the process, the last thing you're thinking as you watch a loved one, passing in front of you, day by day, which is just an awful, terrible grind. The last thing you're thinking about is gratitude.
Yeah. And I admit the day she died, I didn't have a lot.
No, it's a lot easier to be hateful than it is to be grateful when that stuff happens.
Yeah, I was angry at the doctors. I was angry at, like, why didn't they catch this sooner, and blah, blah, blah. I was finding other reasons. And in reality, it wasn't really their fault. Cancer it's just a deadly disease, and my sister was just unfortunate to have a higher stage, So she was at stage 4, and I mean, there's just no cure beyond that.
Now, how did you use your sobriety to deal with the grief?
The deal with the grief, the thing is that I was in a grief support program through a church, through a Baptist church in town, and I was using that, but I realized the program that they have was very similar to the AA program. And so I just used the steps of the program because you need, because it's honestly very similar.
And where are you in the grief process right now?
I mean, I still have my days. In fact, I had one last night. I didn't sleep well because, this is embarrassing, but I thought my house was haunted because our basement slammed. And I'm thinking, our basement door slammed in the middle of the night. I'm like, okay, that's kind of weird. It could have been my cat, though, But I was thinking, oh, that's my sister, just let me know she's still around, and I think I'm just at that point where I kind of want her to visit me, but at the same time I know it probably won't happen. I just need to be thankful that she's no longer in pain and that she's still there with me in spirit.
And Aimee, we got about a minute left. What advice would you give others going through this?
Communicate. Don't isolate. Do not isolate. The best bet is to talk to others because everybody will listen, especially if you're dealing with something like this. And also, especially if you're in AA and this, contact your sponsor and talk to people in the program. That is the number one thing, and that's helped me tremendously. And I'll be honest, also antidepressants have helped me tremendously as well.
Yeah, that power of community, somebody just coming up to you and saying, hey, I get it. I've been there too.
Yes. Like I have a fellow coworker that who's in the program. She says hi, by the way. And she just lost her mom, but she lost her husband a few years ago. So she and I are on the same boat. We've been through the same thing. So she's someone that's easy to talk to. And my sponsor's lost her mom recently as well. Well, a couple of years ago. So I'm with people who've been through it, who've seen it, and who've suffered grief, and to talk to other people like that, it really helps.
And Aimee, thank you very much for being on the show. I totally admire you, having that ability to stay sober despite just terrible loss and terrible tragedy, being able to find that gratitude in bad situations. And I certainly admire you, Aimee, and appreciate you for being on the show. Well, folks, another edition of Generating Gratitude is in the books. Thank you for listening. Thanks to our folks at WSGW. Thanks to my friend Jonathan for helping out here. We look forward to talking with you next week. Remember, you can go on the WSGW website and download any of our Generating Gratitude episodes. If you need a little gratitude in your life, it's a good thing to download. Remember this, though. You can't be hateful and you can't be grateful at the same time. We'll see you next week.